Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone is doing well today. Shout out to all the subscribers and gratitude to anyone new locked in. Boxing fans are really not happy about this fight between Tim Tszyu and Keith Thurman. I haven't seen that many people being pleased with it. I'm actually alright with it. I've expressed that in a video I made a couple of days ago, but I want to elaborate on that and explain as to why I think this fight is actually alright and how it comes about, because there are some finer details to look at. I watched an interview with Tim Tszyu's manager. I think his name's Glenn Jennings. Seems like a very reasonable guy. I watched that yesterday, and he shed some insight into the process of how it came about. And, you know, he even also agreed that he could understand the criticism as to why it was on pay-per-view, which I think is the biggest issue. Now, I agree with that, the pay-per-view status, but as the event goes on, obviously they've added Rolly and Isaac Cruz to the fight, which to the card, which that could be a really exciting fight for how long it lasts. So you're going to get entertainment from that for sure. Yeah, we would like to see Rolly versus Garcia, but you know, boxing, it's hard to get two guys in the ring or two girls in the ring with each other to compete at a high level or a top level, and that manager was saying that, you know, it's not easy to get these fights. So, and then on top of that, you got Erislandy Lara versus Michael Zarefa for Lara's WBA title. So when you add all the fights together, is it pay-per-view? Probably not, but it becomes more appealing for an event. Will the promotion be good, and will it get the buzz going for you the consumer to want to dig into your pocket for your hard-earned money? That's going to be up to you, and that's going to be up to the promotion. But maybe when it comes to it, we might feel differently. But in terms of how they got to Keith Thurman, look, when you look down at the 154 lists, right? Okay, Tim Tszyu just fought Brian Mendoza, top 10. Ocampo, I'm not sure if he was in the top 10, but he's lurking around there. And the only other person to stop him was Errol Spence. That was a very good win. Tszyu knocked him out in one round. Then you had, at the beginning of the year, Tony Harrison, top 10. Okay, so Tszyu had a tremendous year. So the other people left in the top 10, and Tszyu's manager was saying they keep pursuing Jamel Charlo every single week. He said they're calling him, and he's just radio silence. Jamel's gone quiet, so that fight is off the table. He's obviously, you know, I think he's still got 3 belts at 154, but that would be the ideal fight for us fans, I think. But that's not going to happen. Not because of Tszyu. They try every week. That's not there. The Crawford fight was in talks, and he confessed that. And so then, well, obviously negotiations fell down, probably because of money, right? So they're trying to get Bud. They've got a budget, and they're trying to get these names in the ring. This is the thing, is like, they don't just start with Keith Thurman. It ends up there. People are saying, oh, he's cherry picking and this fight's rubbish and all that. You know, like, they're not starting to try to get Keith Thurman in the ring. But even if they did, I'll get on to why I still think it's an alright fight. Because if you didn't see the Barrios fight and see how good he was, which I had saw highlights, but I just watched it again this morning. He was fantastic. More on that a bit later on. So then you got the negotiations fell through with Bud. Then they were negotiating with Erickson Lubin, who is a top 10 fighter, and he's coming off a controversial win against Jesus Ramos. But Erickson Lubin is a decent little fighter, don't get me wrong. Is that more appealing to you than a Keith Thurman? Now, if you look at it from a business standpoint, who's the bigger name? Keith Thurman is. Now, if you're trying to break America, as they're trying to do, they're trying to get Tszyu's name out there, and they're trying to get him with some consistency. They want to fight 3 times a year. Lubin is only really known to us, you know, harder fans. You know, I don't really call myself a hardcore fan. I love the sport. I'm a very passionate boxing fan, but hardcore fans are the ones that knows all the fighters from every single category. You know, I just love the sport in different angles, from like teaching it, to the science of it, to the fights, to the fighters, to the spirit of it, and more. But I love the sport. So I've lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Yeah, Lubin. Okay, so the fans. So like from a known fight, they're trying to appeal to the larger audience. Okay, who's got a larger name? Keith Thurman. Now let's just say he's in the mix, right? Then you have other names. Virgil Ortiz, right? Just coming off a win. He just fought. So realistically, is he going to want to go right back into camp? And let's just say he probably doesn't, right? They could fight Virgil Ortiz at the end of the year when they get the momentum and they get the wins going and they start building his name up. That becomes a way bigger fight. Not to mention, on Tim Tszyu's team, they might just think, we don't want to fight him just yet because it's a risk. And I'm not saying that they're scared to fight him. I'm not saying Tim Tszyu's scared to fight him whatsoever. From a business standpoint, the promoters and the managers, that's a fight you want later on down the line, probably. If I was managing Tim Tszyu, I'd be like, yeah, we could probably win that fight, probably. But he's the high risk. High risk, I wouldn't say low reward, but you know what I mean? Like they probably will fight him, but they need 3 fights, so they've got to fight somebody. So other names at 154, Errol Spence. That's really unrealistic. He's tied up with Bud, maybe, but then he's coming off a brutal loss. That is a brutal fight to put Errol Spence back in. I'm not saying, he would get brutalized again or lose, but I'm just saying from his injury, from all the surgery, that's off the table. Then you've got Jesus Ramos, right? Supposed boogeyman of the division, or one of, just a tough fight, but nobody really knows who he is outside the fans. So that's a higher risk, low reward again. So now you're left with Danny Garcia. Okay, that's actually not a bad fight. He's obviously got a name. He's a well recognized, adored fighter in boxing. I think we all really like Danny Garcia just from like the fights he's put on, and his dad. I miss his dad. Those interviews that he used to do was amazing. Every now and then I'll go back and watch. If you want to laugh, watch Angel Garcia. He's great. So then you are left with the Keith Thurmans of the world. And look, people talk about his inactivity. I spoke about it 100%. He's been very inactive. But I was genuinely surprised when I saw the Barrios fight, and I was like, wow, he didn't, and the whole panel was saying this too. Lennox Lewis, Dan Goosen, who looks like a wine rep from California, Brian Kenny, and there was another ringside referee, I think, all in unison. Like, Keith Thurman looks sharp. He hasn't missed a beat. His inactivity doesn't even appear to be showing up. Sean Porter as well, who was the commentator up higher, he was mentioning that too. Keith Thurman looked great. Barrios' win against Ugas his that win over Barrios, is getting better and better. So Keith Thurman hasn't not been in a competitive fight or won every fight. He's only lost to Pacquiao, and that was a competitive fight. So are we really led to believe Tim Tszyu's just going to completely blow out Thurman? I don't think he will. I think he'll win. I think he'll probably win comfortably, but I think it's a half decent fight given all the names that I've just had to cross off and the process that the team went through to get to where they are. As I said, it's not like they just, let's get Keith Thurman done. They went to all those names I mentioned. Well, I say not all. They were trying to get, I think it seemed like Keith Thurman was the 3rd and the 4th on the list. And the Lubin negotiations broke down for whatever reason. There was money situation, that manager said. Actually, it's a good interview. It's on D Styles Boxing, and so you just have to kind of put yourself in these business perspectives, because it is a business. We hear that all the time, but what it means is, they're looking at long term. Okay, how can we build our fighter up? And what better way to build a fighter up than to have him fight someone who's already got a built audience to a degree? Keith Thurman will bring more eyes to that fight than Erickson Lubin, I think, right? So then, like I said, find out who's left. And that's a genuine question for anyone watching right now. If you can name a name that sounds reasonable that I have not thought of or even have mentioned, you can make a good argument. I'd love to hear it, because that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Because Keith Thurman is going to come to win. And I don't think he's washed up at all. That Barrios fight, yeah, it was 2 years ago, but he also took 2 years off after coming off a loss against Pacquiao and then put in that performance. Again, I'm not expecting Thurman to win. I'm just expecting it to be a half decent competitive fight, and I think Thurman has got the style to cause Tszyu problems because of his cerebral mind. His move, his hand speed was on display as well. He was throwing left hooks, uppercuts, up jabs, right hooks. He's got an arsenal of punches, Keith Thurman has, and he thinks his way through fights, and his footwork is pretty damn good, you know, and he's really fast, and he'll be ready. And I think it's going to be a better fight than a lot of people think. And then someone in the comments, shout out to you, was saying that this fight is a backward step. So let's just say Tim Tszyu goes in there, and you know, it's like it gets a highlight reel knockout, or stops Keith Thurman, who nobody has. Not even Pacquiao did that. That's going to bolster Tim Tszyu's profile, no doubt about it, in America. If he puts on a performance, and you know, the event ends up being decent-ish, the numbers might be a bit low on the pay-per-view, but you know, that will all be forgotten if he puts on a great show and gets a great knockout. And then that's how you build the audience. Then he gets another fight, maybe with the Lubins, maybe with somebody else that is relevant in the 154. It's not easy to get these fights. He's already fought some of the guys up there, so it's like, who's left, basically? And then Virgil Ortiz or the Bud fight, if it's there, if the money's there, or Jamel. Well, I don't think Jamel's up for that fight, to be honest. But you see what I'm saying? I think there's more to it than just looking at it from a surface level of like, oh, this fight's trash. Because I've seen so many people to say it's terrible. It's a terrible fight. I'm like, I don't think you watched the Barrios fight. To be honest, go and watch the fight. Go and watch that Barrios fight and tell me that Keith Thurman wasn't very, very good in that fight, because he was. And look, former world champion, only lost to Pacquiao, comes in shape, prepared, mentally strong, physically fit, fast, mover, intelligent. I don't mind the fight at all. I think it's all right. I think the card, obviously, the pay-per-view status is at question, but you know, even I don't know. I'm just trying. I'm trying to just help people just see it from a different angle. That like, if you were promoting Tim Tszyu and you had the first three list burn out, the first three opponents you wanted to get weren't there, what would you do? You've got to keep this guy active, you know. That's what it comes down to. And I think in terms of that, Keith Thurman's the man. That's it from me. Let me know your thoughts. Hit the like button if you enjoyed it. It's got to come from here every time. Hit the subscribe button if you are new. Peace and love. I'm out. Have a great weekend.